What we're doing here at National Capital Presbytery is modeling how to have a conversation around something that might be a little bit tense. We are removing our time to speak with each other and hear from each other away from the floor debate of a typical Presbytery meeting and to create some space so that we are able to hear each other and thoughtfully respond on how we might vote for an overture like this one. David's going to give us some of the mechanics, nuts and bolts of what these overtures look like. We're then going to spend some time in conversation around tables.
The Office of the General Assembly sent out all of the proposed amendments that came out of this year's General Assembly. Now at this stage, where the amendments go to the presbyteries for their consideration and discernment, we are talking about amendments 24A and 24C.
And my opening comment was that I didn't really understand what these changes are going to be.
When Amendment B came up here, I don't know if you guys were here, we spent a lot of time discerning that.
What's being proposed to be added isn't the thing that really bugs me the most about that paragraph. So to me this seems a little redundant.
I mean, over time, might somebody come in and say, yes, let's go ahead and get rid of those conservative evangelicals?
All it asks you to do is say that you won't discriminate. It's not saying, will you marry people, right? And for so many years, people have been asked the question, people have been denied participation in the leadership of the church because they were LGBT.
It's not only what it says here, but it's the interpretation and the practice of, and how does this, you were getting at it, right? How does this play out?
I think we generally agreed, and please stop me if I'm wrong, that the first part of this amendment we wholly support, that we want to keep growing the PCUSA as a big tent place that fully welcomes folks of all gender identities and sexual orientations. Some of us are fully on board with the second part as well. We know and love this presbytery, and we trust that all y'all are going to be welcoming and affirming of folks despite differences of theological opinion. For others of us, we have concerns with the second part in that it seems to lift up an essential tenet. And generally the question has been that we decide and wrestle together what are the essential tenets of their Reformed traditions.
And we also talked about the history in this denomination, or in this presbytery specifically, of really having thoughtful dialogue and discussion when it comes to finding a match between a congregation and a candidate. Because of course we have congregations in our church that are much more theologically conservative and others that are much more theologically progressive, and that the magic is really in that match.
One person here was examined on the floor of Presbytery when we were under Amendment B, and found that to be a very unhappy experience. It was just, she felt there was an abuse of power by the Presbytery, and she does not want that to be the case for anyone else.
We should be a welcoming church to everyone without asterisks, so adding additional categories is a good thing, but that becoming a welcoming church isn't really accomplished through legislation, and this actually works against that in some ways because it is intended in some ways to exclude others.
A big part of our conversation was really of where does discrimination start and theological conviction end, and how do we grapple with that?
Finally, real hope that these new questions don't eliminate people from candidacy. We don't want this to be a sort of a litmus test.
We had a really great time to talk together in small groups about what we're excited about, which is that this is a chance to affirm that we're a big tent, and what we're scared about, which is that for some folks it doesn't feel like a step towards being fully inclusive of folks of all backgrounds and perspectives. I'm grateful for the conversation and hopeful that we can continue the dialogue.
One of the things our table talked about was how it's really important to be transparent, because if we believe ourselves to be this body of Christ, this community together, then we believe we can handle it. We can have hard conversations together and stay in relationships.
Still, all was not asked is sometimes you have to articulate that all is handles of the.
My table definitely felt the blessing of having the conversation and starting it. We also felt some of that tension of there's never enough time to plumb the depths of the complexities of stuff like this.
I think our meeting today was excellent because it demonstrates that even though we have different viewpoints on the issues, we can still sit and talk to each other, and that is such a missing element not just in church circles, but even around our nation. And I think ultimately, whatever decision we make, because we're building trust and relationships, we'll be able to navigate whatever decision that gets made.
Our hope is that you watching this, as long as other people who engage in this conversation, got to learn and to hear something new. And if we succeeded with that, we know that we are doing the Lord's work.